The other thing that we're following this week is failed ATF nominee, David Chipman, which he was on CBS Evening News, right? Just on Wednesday, I believe it was.
Yep.
Yeah. And,
yeah. Sat down with Norah O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm. And he made a number of claims on there that are pretty hyperbolic, I guess, would be one way of,
to say the least,
of putting it. Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I guess one of the first things that I would want to say about this is like Norah O'Donnell, just like the New York Times, who was the first one to interview Chipman after his nomination failed, did not ask him a single question about the allegations that he, one, made racist comments while working in the Detroit office, where he is accused of saying that too many black people had passed a promotion assessment and that they must have cheated in order to do so. And then obviously we broke the story that there were, there was a complaint filed against him over those comments, allegedly. And we were able to corroborate that story is one that ATF agents had certainly been told at the time happened. So that occurred in July. And then in August, we had a black ATF, former ATF agent, come forward and tell us that Chipman had actually specifically accused him of cheating on a promotion assessment because Chipman believed that his answers were too good on the particular segment that he was sitting in on. So obviously these are pretty serious revelations and pretty serious accusations that got a lot of attention in his nomination fight when they came out. In fact, they prompted the entire Republican caucus of the Senate Judiciary Committee to call for a second hearing. They prompted the Minority Leader Mitch McConnell to call for him to be pulled. And then eventually he was pulled by President Biden a few weeks later after failing to get support from a number of key Democratic holdouts. Now, I mean, the entire Republican caucus publicly said they would not vote for him. But then you also had 4 big holdouts on the Democratic side as well, who never publicly supported him, never publicly declared their support for him in, what was it? Who were the 4? It was
it's a Manchin.
Yeah, Manchin, Sinema,
Angus King,
and Tester.
Tester, yeah.
So they were the real roadblocks. Is you only need 50 votes in order to get a nominee confirmed in this to a position like that. So obviously Republican support was unanimous, but they didn't actually need any Republicans to get him through and confirm him.
That's right.
But O'Donnell doesn't mention any of this in her interview with him. She doesn't question him once about any of these allegations. He has responded to them in a USA Today interview that happened a few weeks ago as well with the Trace, where they did directly ask him about this. And he claimed that, well, one, he confirmed that it was a black agent that he accused of cheating. And he denied that had anything to do with, racial animus. He said that obviously that his claim is that had no part. Now, the agent himself believes that it did play a role.
Sure. That
it played a direct role and the main role in what happened to him. And the agent said he was exonerated of what Chipman accused him of, but that at the same time, it took 2 years to go through that investigation, effectively sidelined him during that time. And he lost his desire to pursue further promotion in the agency after that. So it did have a serious effect on this agent's career. It's a fairly significant story, and it's remarkable to me personally that you could have someone like that who's based those allegations on network news show and not even ask him once about them. Instead, she focused on his opinion on basically rising murder rates in the United States and his opinion on his own confirmation failing. Is a little bit odd, to be honest.
It is odd. And the fact that she doesn't bring it up, and like you said, the New York Times didn't either, it allows him to make some of those hyperbolic claims that you were talking about, where he says, oh, I'm for gun safety. And the fact that they were against me means they're against gun safety.
Well, actually, it was worse than that. He said, he spent his whole career at the ATF and then 10 years afterwards where he was working directly for gun control organizations, which he still does. He works for Giffords as a senior policy analyst today. But he was saying that his whole career was dedicated to stopping gun violence, and that the only reason to oppose him would be if you don't support stopping gun violence.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty rash thing to say about your opponents, but that was his claim as to why he didn't succeed in his nomination. But I just think it's a bit odd to have him on to opine about guns in America. He failed. Like, his nomination didn't go through. It's just kind of weird to have him on and they kind of treated him like he was the director of the ATF. Right. Like, not that Norah O'Donnell never challenges him on anything, because she does in what's available online. But at the same time, she's like asking him what the purpose of the ATF is and what should be done at the ATF. It's kind of treating him like he is the ATF director, even though he's obviously not. And the other thing is that, in addition to the reporting on the racism allegations, we also had direct quotes from current and former ATF agents who were concerned about his nomination. Now, Chipman paints this opposition to him as purely being a political and purely being the result of the gun industry, when really there were also the same concerns inside the ATF. People said that because he's so antagonistic towards the gun industry, which he would be set up to regulate, that could harm the agency's ability to pursue criminal investigations, because oftentimes gun dealers are the ones who help to provide tips for those investigations. That the kind of cooperation between the industry and the agency, that kind of a cooperation is key to how they actually perform their jobs, and that he would risk that. So this was a common theme that you heard from multiple agents. I think we spoke directly to 4 agents who all had the same concern. And then another 7 agents, former agents, came out and wrote a public letter stating the same concerns. Yep. That was submitted to the Judiciary Committee as well. Norah O'Donnell did not ask him about those concerns at all. And I just find that odd as well. Like, she's set up in this interview like he represents the ATF, even though he was not confirmed to be director. And every public statement from a former ATF official during his confirmation his confirmation period was negative towards him, was opposed to his nomination. So, I don't know how you could make it the case that he speaks for the ATF in any way. He hasn't worked there in over a decade. And even people who worked directly with him said that they were concerned about him becoming director. So it's just an odd, sloppy interview, in my opinion. And obviously he goes on to make a number of other very controversial statements that sort of give you insight into why he was a controversial nominee even before the allegations of racism came out. Right.
He says the gun industry profits off death and violence, and he's exactly the kind of things that they were concerned with. Right. Going forward.
He says that they intentionally sell guns to criminals and terrorists and profit off of that. And that's why there's opposition to what he wants to do. That was his explanation for it. And he also claimed that it's easier to buy a gun in most of the country than it is to buy a beer, which is just, and he claimed this without any evidence or explanation
right.
of how he could possibly say that, because it's not remotely true. Even in areas like, usually, you know, this is a common talking point that you hear, obviously, in gun control circles. President Obama made this a number of times. I think even Biden has done this too.
He has, yeah.
But the claim is, you know, they're usually trying to say, like, in bad neighborhoods, you can go and buy a gun off the street easily. And that may be true, but I mean, generally, but that would be illegal for one.
Sure.
In most of the circumstances that they're talking about here. Like if you're buying a gun from a street dealer who's not doing a background check, it's probably illegal. Yes, you can buy a gun through a private sale that's legal without a background check in most states. Okay, fair enough. But like you don't need a background check to buy a beer either.
I was going to say, never had to fill out a 4473 at the bar.
And if you're talking about illegal sales, like I'm pretty sure you could get a beer. That's like one of the classic things is to have an adult go and buy you a beer if you're underage.
Right.
Like that's not, so it's just like they make these bizarre comparisons. I mean, you know, they'll talk about a book. I think President Obama famously said it was easier to get a gun than a book in some parts of the country. It's like, no, it's not. This is just gibberish.
It's actually not.
You're just lying.
Right.
The same thing here. Like, no, it is not easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a beer, whatever your made up circumstances are going to be. It's just not true in any way. Like, how hard do you think it is to get a beer in the United States? It's just ridiculous. So I don't know.
It just shows the deficiency in covering firearms issues in the mainstream media, which is, you know, exactly why you guys should stay tuned to The Reload. Come for that kind of insight.
Yes. Good sell. That's good. You're learning. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, come on, man. And you know, she challenges him on some of his more hyperbolic statements. You know, when he talks about how opposition to him is all because gun dealers want to sell guns to criminals and terrorists, you know, she asks, or presses him, is like, you really think that lawful gun owners don't want to stop, you know, gun traffickers? And he says, not enough of them. So yeah, like he's attacking directly lawful gun owners, saying that they don't care about gun crime, which is remarkable. I mean, he's like explicitly attacking Angus King and the other Democrats who didn't vote for him because he claims that they were concerned he wouldn't be friendly enough towards the gun industry. It was sort of the way that he put it, like implying that they're all beholden to the gun industry. And that again that's where Norah O'Donnell should have mentioned. It's not just Angus King or, you know, Republican senators or Tester or Manchin or Sinema who had these concerns about him and his relationship with the gun industry. Other ATF agents had these concerns, like we noted. So it wasn't a well-prepared interview. It didn't cover really serious allegations of wrongdoing against him. And I just don't, to me, I can't imagine that happening with a Trump nominee or a Bush nominee accused of the same things. It's not realistic that they would get a relatively softball interview on the nightly news or the evening news in this case on CBS. Right. So I just think it's disappointing. It's not the worst interview I've ever seen, but it's certainly not up to the standards of what professional journalism should be, what you should strive to do when you have I can't interview Chipman. They will not let me interview him. I would love to have him on this very podcast, uncut, unedited, let him say whatever he wants, and let me ask him questions. I'd love to do that, but that's not going to happen because they won't make him available. And so people who do get interviews with him ought to take their responsibility seriously to the public to inform them and to get answers about what's happening. I mean, USA Today and the Trace, to their credit, asked him about this stuff. They only put in 2 sentences from him on it, but at least they asked him.
At least they asked, yeah.
I think more could be said. More, there could be a deeper inquiry than just asking him and printing that he said the race wasn't involved. I mean, there's a lot of questions you could ask in there about the situation, but a lot of these places don't even do it, and they're just having him do this media tour. It's like his fourth major outlet now. I'm sure he'll probably be on more. It feels like a rehabilitation tour, or a spite tour at this point. Like, how hard he's going against Biden administration and these Democrats in the Senate is kind of surprising, given that he's still, associated with a major gun control group. I wonder how long that goes on before they start getting pushback about it.
Sure.
But, we'll see.